new awards, new rule changes, Rams and Colts history we'll talk about, the Kyren Williams great debate going on. All of that we'll cover today on this off-season update episode here on the Rams Up Podcast Network. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Rams Up Podcast Network. I'm Ian. That's Mark. If you're on YouTube here, like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. All that helps the algorithm with other Rams and football fans being able to see our content on YouTube. And if you're on the audio-only, podcast-only side of things, share this podcast with all your fellow Rams and football fans. Any of those options, we very much appreciate it. Mark, my friend, how you doing, man? Good weather out here in Los Angeles. How about you?
Oh man, it's finally warming up. It's actually pretty awesome right now. And filling the void, watching a little bit of NBA, actually watching a
Yeah.
little bit of hockey too, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
baseball, and trying to drum up some content for the channel. And I was wondering what we are going to talk about today. And then you started sending all these items to me. I'm like, oh man, we do have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, we do. And shout out to Mikal Bridges of the New York Knicks, our fellow Rams football fan. Hopefully we see a Rams fan hosting the NBA trophy. I'm blanking on the name of it. Sorry, I'm a football guy first. You know what I mean. Shout out to Mikal, our fellow Rams fan, and I hope he does well in tonight's game against the Indiana Pacers, which should be a good series if you're just a fan of sports in general. But a lot to talk about, Rams Nation, as we alluded to earlier, and Mark did as well. And we'll start with all these rule changes that will be taking place. As yes, the NFL owners voted on things previously, and a lot of nitty gritty got handled. And we covered that about a month or so ago, if my memory serves me correctly. But they got together yet again and voted on some new stuff. But I think what's important is what the hell didn't pass, and that would be the NFL playoff format change. Excuse me, that's a tongue twister. Proposal was shelved as the Detroit Lions brought up, hey, a team that has a good record should not be a wild card team, and they should be hosting a playoff game. As last year, if you remember, the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings were both 13, 14 plus win teams that were one team was going to be hosting and the other team was going to have to be traveling. And we end up seeing the Minnesota Vikings out in the neutral site Arizona Cardinal Stadium, and we whooped their ass. So, hey, maybe home field advantage out there in Minnesota would have helped them. Who knows? We'll never know. But because of that scenario, the Lions are like, hey, we should rechange the format into best record to worst record. But when they got together today, the Lions' proposal to allow wildcard teams to be seated higher than division champions if they have a better regular season record has been withdrawn. The current system remains in place, though this is expected to come up again in the future per Ari Miroff of My Sports Update on X Twitter, as he has some good updates and NFL content on X Twitter. So, Mark, Rams Nation, long story short, Lions are like, yeah, no one's gonna be on our side, maybe than the other couple teams. So we're not gonna embarrass ourselves by having this be put on the table to vote, right?
Well, this is the other part of it, and maybe they came to the senses in this regard. This is a something that changes from season to season, and I was looking at the schedules this year, and I'll make a prediction right now. There's going to be multiple teams out of the NFC West this year, and there may
Yeah,
only be one team out of the NFC North, so they may
yeah.
be, hurting themselves. Yeah, last year it kind of screwed the NFC North. It could flip. I like leave it the way it is. Award the divisional champion because these schedules are not even. They're not balanced across divisions. So just leave it alone. And maybe that's part of it. You could be right. Maybe they just realize they're not going to get the votes. But, looking at the schedules this year, I think the NFC West is the most likely division in the NFC to send two teams to the playoffs. That's my opinion. And maybe
Yeah.
the NFC East.
I mean, the North will just probably cannibalize on each other, but there's, that group of four is pretty dang good, right? There's going to be a good team. I mean, a team with a good roster that's going to be in fourth place out of the North there. So I get their point from the Lions' perspective of pushing this, but there's got to be reward for winning your division, right? Just like how we were a game away from hosting an NFC Championship game because, well, we won our division. We obviously hosted, quote unquote, a playoff home game out there in Arizona, but things would have shook our way. And if this was not the case, and we did go from best record, that would have not been a possibility. Or even in past years, that would have not been a possibility. A la the 2021 Super Bowl champion Rams. So I'm glad it's staying the way it is. And if they are going to change, they're going to have to completely change the way they make schedules. I think Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, and Chris Sims covered this and made a great suggestion way back when this was a possibility of maybe this being up in the air seriously. It was like, hey, every team in the NFC's got to play each other once. Every team in the AFC has to play each other at least once. And then you can mix in an extra game or two, if those things aren't fulfilled. But if it's not going to be that way, then best record, there's too many variables to that. And if that's not going to happen, then it should never change, and it's not gonna, Rams Nation. So that's a good sign. And hey, things will stay the way they are with that, and I'm happy to see that. But what is some other big news in terms of rule changes that are going on? NFL owners also voted to allow onside kick rules to be modified. Now, if you remember, with last year being the first year of the what's the word I want to say it? The whatever. But the new glorified kick return, where everyone has to stay still and until the ball lands in the landing zone or is touched by a returner, then no one can move, right? It was a way to get teams to stop kicking so many touchbacks, but that didn't stop the Rams. That didn't stop a lot of teams, as earlier this offseason, they created a rule to say, hey, we're going to allow teams to be penalized for kicking touchbacks, where we're going to move it up even more 5 yards, which will now be the 35-yard line. And they said, hey, what about the onside kick? And they say, no, we'll revisit it today. And today happened, and now they're making rule changes to the onside kick, which will now allow teams to kick at any time, not just the fourth quarter like it was last season, where you had to be trailing. It can only be the fourth quarter, which I thought was a terrible rule change last season. But now this season, you can do it at any time. And I think the extra bonus is that, if you remember, onside kicks have to be kicked at least 10 yards into the receiving team's field of play, right? But the kicking unit itself, outside of the kicker, is going to be scooted up 1 more yard. So they're only going to be 9 yards away from getting into the proper field of play to make a tackle or to recover the ball, obviously. And I think that's pretty big, as success rates with onside kicks have been pretty bad and pretty low throughout NFL history. And obviously last year they were just 6%, which is pretty crazy, as Ari Miroff says again here on X Twitter. But I think this is going to help not only just the gamesmanship, right? Because, Mark, that was so lame. Only fourth quarter you can onside kick, right? That was so stupid. But also, again, moving up the kicking unit, the tacklers, the recovery guys trying to get that onside kick, moving it up 1 yard from 10 yards away to now 9 yards. I think we'll see some stuff happen. So the Rams better get their special teams in order, as that's been an issue over the years with Sean McVay when Bones Fossil left. So I like this. I'm glad that they changed it back, and I'm glad they added this little bonus of scooting up the recovery team on kickoff.
Yeah, so if it doesn't work, they're gonna move it up to 8 yards next year. Maybe they'll just keep on creeping it until
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it, man. But at least, again, I think the biggest thing, Mark, your thoughts on the fourth quarter restriction, or I guess the restriction quarters 1, 2, and 3 are no longer there like it was last season. I thought that was so lame. I'm glad they took that off. Onside kick whenever you want, dang it.
Yeah, I don't expect teams are going to be onside kicking
no
earlier than the fourth quarter anyways. But
yeah.
I think the main thing I'm concerned about is the Rams get their house squared away, and they really did last year. Their special teams unit. I mean, 2 years ago, generationally bad.
It
Last year, pretty
was
darn good. And
better,
that
yeah.
just the improvement is really impressive. And if they keep on that track, I mean, they got their three main guys coming back, their long snapper, their punter, and their kicker. And they signed Britton Covey, Xavier Smith, Jordan Whittington, all capable returners, guys that can return the ball. And I think they're in a good place with their special teams. I hate onside kicks. They've they're just too stressful for me. I hate to see teams, as a last gasp effort, uh, keep their chances alive when they've maybe been hammered the whole game long, score a late touchdown, onside kick, and turn the tables on a team, potentially our team. But hey, that's the game of football.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to tweak it a little more so that onside kicks at least have a chance, though.
Yeah, but to your point, will they scoot it up another yard next season? Well, if it's still 6% like it was this past year, which is really really low in terms of NFL history, I forgot the exact numbers, but it's near the bottom, historically bad in terms of onside kick recovery percentage. Um, if it ends up being that low again, which I don't think will be the case, then I don't think they'll keep scooting them up. But you never know. Everything's about offense and recovering the football and how can we get more points scored and all. That's, to be honest, that's the moneymaker for the NFL, and they acknowledge that. So we'll see. But I'm
Yeah,
happy
and
that this changed.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, and maybe it was last year. There weren't enough attempts. If the new tactic is going to be 9 yards away from the opposing player, just kick laser beams right at their chest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might see a lot of that.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, we got teams that really like the special teams trickery. We used to be one of them when we had Coach Fossil, but you can think on your on the
I don't know if
name them probably.
you remember the Rich Brooks days. They were always
Those go too, yeah.
yeah, their early years in St. Louis. I mean, that's all they
Hmm.
had.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
That's all they.
trademark of the disaster St. Louis era. Let's call it what it is, Rams Nation. So, hey, we'll see if McVay can get our special teams unit to do some cool stuff and hopefully not blow a lot of games like they had, a couple of years ago where it was bad. But that's pretty cool. Shout out to the NFL owners for getting that squared away and getting that in a better space. So we shall see. Maybe the Rams will onside kick and recover one. We'll find out. But just don't give up kick returns, please. That's all I ask. But next, what did the NFL owners vote on to create? I think this is pretty dang cool, Mark Rams Nation. They voted to create a Protector of the Year award, and that would be an award given to the best offensive lineman of the sport, and this would be awarded at the NFL honors ceremony. That is it, at the end of the season in the playoff time, where the MVP is awarded, Player of the Years, Offense Defense, Rookie of the Years, Coach of the Year, Walter Payton Man of the Year, and now we get Protector of the Year. And this is something that was near and dear to a lot of offensive linemen for tons and tons of years. You would see linemen say, man, I wish there was an O-line award or just a trench guy award. And yes, there are the networks where like Fox would be like, oh, O-line of the award, but that wasn't official presented by the league and awarded by the National Football League. But now this one will be, and you guessed it, Rams Nation. Who was one of the big proponents and big, I guess, pushers of to get this done? That would be our own future Hall of Fame player, in my opinion. I'm sure Mark's as well. Andrew Whitworth was one of the main guys to say, hey, NFL owners, why the hell don't we have it? Let's get it going. And then him, along with Deion Dawkins of the Buffalo Bills, they're all pro linemen, and some others, they were big proponents and big, lobbyists, you could call them, with the NFL owners to get this created. And here's Andrew Whitworth quoted saying, it's time the men who lead, protect, and never ask for credit are recognized as the backbone of this game. Future Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year. Andrew Whitworth said that for the Protector of the Year award that will be awarded every year going forward, starting at the end of this 2025 campaign. Pretty dang cool. Another Ram getting crap done, getting the NFL pushing forward to get things right and award these trench linemen, because how has this not been an award in the past? You don't really think about it, Mark, Rams Nation, but it's kind of crazy. It's never been a thing for the 100+ year history of professional football, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, especially when you consider, okay, there's 11 players on offense, almost half of them are offensive linemen, and
Yeah,
typically, if they're healthy, barring injury, they're out there for every single snap of the game.
yeah,
Typically, the only players that are out there for every snap of the game are the offensive lineman, the quarterback, and maybe a defensive back or a linebacker or two, and that's it. And
yeah.
yeah, they should get I mean, everybody, every coach worth his with any experience is going to tell you it starts with the offensive line to some degree, anyway. So yeah, it's a good award.
Yeah, good award. And just to give you perspective, Rams Nation, could you imagine another few games where Rob Havenstein didn't play this last season? Or Lark Jackson was suspended for more than a couple games? Or, Steve Avila had to miss the entire season with his knee injury? Kevin Dotson had to miss games. Bo Limmer wasn't any good, right? Or whatever. All these different scenarios. It's important to remember how seriously vital the offensive line is. Right? Can't run block, you're screwed in the run game. Can't pass block, a Hall of Fame quarterback like Matthew Stafford has no time to be electric throwing the football. I mean, it's a group that never gets credit and only gets talked about when things go terrible. But obviously, there are O lines that get recognized now. The Eagles have gotten a lot of hype, deservedly so, and others. But shout out to Whitworth. Shout out to all the O linemen out there. I love seeing you guys maul people on film, and I hope to see a future Ram. Maybe a Kevin Dotson, maybe a Rob Havenstein, maybe a Steve Avila one day, maybe an Alar Jackson one day win this Protector of the Year award or any future Ram we draft. I hope to see that, and pretty dang cool. Shout out to the owners. Shout out to Whitworth and Co. Getting this push through, Mark.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. I agree. But I think what is another important voting that happened, and that would be Rams Nation, that NFL owners are now allowing NFL players to participate in flag football in any Olympic game going forward. Obviously, with LA hosting it in 2028, that is the first time flag football will be allowed to win a gold medal in, which is pretty dang cool. And I think there's only 6 nations participating, if my memory serves me correctly, in this flag football inaugural season for the Olympics. And regardless of how many teams or nations, and I'm sure it'll grow over time, there's no doubt about it, the NFL, Mark, in my opinion, got this approved solely because they say, hey, we can market all our star players that are going to play, and this will just grow the NFL brand throughout the world because there are going to be so many people tuning in. If that was not the case and money wasn't the main objective, you can bet your bottom dollar that NFL owners wouldn't approve it because of the injury risk, right? Let's say Puka Nacua is still an all-pro level player in 28. Do you think Stan Kroenke and the Rams would really want Puka running around with that as a possibility? Saying, hey, maybe he tweaks his ankle and he has to miss a quarter or half the season. Maybe he blows out his knee running around on that crappy grass in a different nation and yada, yada. I guess I know it's in LA, but you get my hypothetical here. If that was solely the reason, then definitely wouldn't have been passed. But because money is the main driver in any business, and the NFL is no different, I know they're thinking, okay, we can market a Puka. We can market whatever great young quarterback still playing around that time. And we can get more worldwide audience tuning into these players, which will then turn into more cash when we have more international games in the future, which will spike up viewership on our networks because more people from around the world are watching it. I think that's why they pass it. It wasn't because, oh, we love the players, we want them to participate. No, we want them to participate because we got to make more money. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, what I don't understand is how do they select a team? How do they select the flag football team that's going to participate? I assume there's going to be tryouts, and NFL players are going to have to attend those tryouts, and who's going to coach
Yeah.
the team. And I think I understand why they might want to do this. I'd rather they didn't. I'd rather the NFL players stuck to their they're NFL teams, but if they do participate, I guess it'd be kind of cool to see Tutu Atwell out there playing flag football, I suppose. But I kind of feel bad for it because there are athletes that dedicate themselves to flag football.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about it. I'll have to learn a little bit more about it, and step aside and let them have their moment is what my initial thought.
Yeah.
But I don't feel strongly about it. It's to me, it's kind of odd that NFL players would really be risking injury, giving up time to play flag football in the Olympics. So we'll see what happens. I imagine there will be a few. I know Tyreek Hill would probably, he'd be a key player
Sure.
to have on your side, I guess. But yeah, we'll see what
I mean, we'll
happens.
see. We'll see. If, the thing is, all these guys we have in mind today, they're probably gonna be retired in another,
Yeah,
3-ish
right.
years, right? 4 years. So we'll see. Hopefully, Puka is playing well and is not retired, right? Like he says, he can retire young and all that. And if he does participate, which I feel like he would be someone that would really want to, just his personality and who he is, which is cool and great. If he does, hopefully, hey, stay healthy, all you guys out there. And we're a ways from away from this being a reality, of course, Rams Nation. But we'll see, right? 5-on-5 football, no run plays, a lot of trickery. You guys probably have all seen some crazy flag football plays from the adult leagues in your local area, maybe. Maybe you've seen some clips from the NFL's flag football, tournaments that they host. And even the guys who are famous, and that one quarterback guy is like, oh, I'm a better quarterback for flag than Patrick Mahomes. And he might be right with that, right? It's just a different flow of playing, right? It's non-contact. It's a lot more trickery and a lot more laterals, very rugby-esque, a lot more unique play designs and coverages for it being 5-on-5. So I'll watch. It'll be fun. We hope some Rams will be participating in that, but I won't be mad about it if they aren't because, hey, man, there's always a risk of injury, and we would rather them be ready to go for our Super Bowl hopes than, for a gold medal, in my opinion, selfishly. But that's just my opinion. But hey, we'll see what happens. But pretty cool. Hey, they have that option, right, Mark?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I would be the first one watching. I'd definitely be watching if there
Yeah.
are Rams participating, but I'd still rather they did.
Yep, I agree with that for sure as well. So, Rams Nation, what is the last big thing that the owners, had a serious vote on? And that would be, is the tush push going to stay or is it going to go? And well, we got our answer after another vote today. They voted on it early in the year. It did not pass to ban it, but a lot of other owners, other head coaches, the competition committee, tons of guys that include Sean McVay and our ownership were like, nope, we're going to try to get this play removed for a multitude of reasons. But today was the final time to try to get it removed for the 2025 season and beyond. And 10 teams voted against that original Packers proposal to ban the tush push, which was not enough to get it to be banned, as the NFL did not receive the required 75% support from the owners to pass to say, hey, that tush push can no longer happen, which I'm pretty shocked about, Mark. I definitely thought with them being close last time earlier this year and with them saying, no, we're going to vote on it a second time, I definitely thought the second time it was going to get banned and this proposal by the Packers would work. But man, oh man, tush push is here to stay. And I'm sure they'll vote it again next year and then maybe then it gets banned. But the defending Super Bowl champions get this big, big help for their, repeat campaign, Mark, as, Rams were one of the few teams this last season as they had some good stops in the playoffs against it. Now, on this specific play, shout out to Warren Sharp here on X saying, this is art with a screenshot of an overhead camera angle of all the Rams defense, the defenders lining up against the Eagles offense there on the goal line, which on this play, they did score in it, but Lane Johnson false started, if my memory serves him correctly, and we did stop him previously running this play and this beautiful classic snow game. But well, we're gonna have to defend it again, and that's why you sign Puna for. That's why you draft other linebackers that hope that can improve that. Right, another year with Braden and Kobe and others to say, hey, we're not going to be a team that's going to get dominated by it. But dang it, Mark, they're so good at that play.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to see if some other teams start adapting it and using it
Yeah,
effectively. I don't know if it's something the Rams are going to be it's really in their swim lane for Matthew Stafford to be running this play. But you could run it with someone else, right? You can run it with a running back, and maybe that's what teams will start doing. And my biggest problem with it is, well, there's two things. I agree with McVay what he said. It doesn't look like a football play, and kind of tying into that. It's kind of boring. It's a boring play, and
Sure.
Eagle fans love it. But other than that, it's not great TV. And what I thought was interesting about the vote, and I don't know, trying to think logically if there's a reason for this, the only two NFC teams that joined the Eagles were the Saints and the Lions. Everybody else was AFC teams. And I wonder if that makes sense. It probably does. All the
Yeah.
most of the NFC teams that have to deal with it on a weekly basis, or kind of like, let's get rid of it, while the AFC teams, it's not as big a deal to them. Just leave the rules as they are.
Yeah, and keep this in mind, though, Rams Nation. There were two teams or two owners away from this getting banned. So they're pretty close. The majority of the league, 70% or whatever, 72 out of the 75 that was needed, was in agreement to ban it. Now, like we talked about when we first covered it about a month and some change ago, whenever that was, the argument for health and safety is a bunch of crap. I with that argument by Sean McDermott's Bills and other teams and LaFleur and all them with the Packers, that's a bunch of crap. That's just an excuse. Now, Sean McVay's point of it being not looking like a football play, I talked about it last time. I think that's a lame excuse as well, truthfully. Now, what makes sense to me, and that shout out to Mark Schlereth, former, Hall of Fame-esque offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos, he brought up a while back, and I agree with this, is that there is a rule in place where defenders are not allowed to shove on each other to create momentum and create force to stop an offensive player or a ball carrier. Now, that is not the case on offense, as this tush-push play unfolding over the years, and now up for mega debate was where Jalen Hurts can get shoved by any other offensive player to gain momentum and gain positive yardage to advance the football. Now, if you want to argue that if defenders can't do it, why can't offensive players? Totally agree with that. And for that sole reason is why I was in the majority of get rid of the tush push play. Now, how do you solve this? You either say, hey, defenders, you can push on each other to create force and momentum to stop a ball carrier or to stop offensive players, then let's go. I don't give a damn. As long as things are on equal footing, the tush push thing doesn't bother me. As long as the things are on equal footing, but it's not. That is my stance on why I was in agreement with banning the play. Not for health and safety. That's a load of crap. I think Jason Kelsey came in to talk to the owners today or this last week and give them an education of how, hey, no Eagle players have gotten hurt. I haven't been hurt. No one's been seriously injured. So that argument's a bunch of BS, which I agree with. It not looking like a football play, to McVay and other coaches and owners' points, I think it's a lame too. But again, if defenders can't shove on each other and push each other to stop offensive players, why should the offense be allowed to do that? That is my thing. And I hope that in the future that rule is changed. Either defensive players are allowed to do it or no player is allowed to do it, and then the offensive players will get penalized, which would in turn ban the tush push play. But that's not going to stop the Eagles from running a hell of a quarterback sneak, but it'll help Jalen not get that extra push, shove momentum and force by his teammates to be able to get that ball advanced maybe an extra 2 or 3 yards when he was maybe only going to get 2 or 3 at the max. So that's my long explanation, Rams Nation, if you didn't hear that from the last time we covered it. But health and safety, lame excuse. Doesn't look like football, lame excuse. Defenders can't shove on each other like offensive players. I think that's whack. But whatever, we're going to have to deal with it another year as we play the Eagles in week 3, right? In an early game out there in Philadelphia. And then an eventual and likely playoff, face-off again if things go well for us and them. We're going to have to stop it then again. And so be it. That's why you get Puna forward, and that's why you hope all these other D linemen interior defensive guys step up, and these rookies that we drafted can make a difference, a la Chris Paul Jr. and others.
Yeah, and I think defenses will start to figure it out a little bit, and it won't be as successful as years past.
Yeah, I hope so.
That's
I hope
that's
so.
kind of how things work in the NFL, right?
Yeah, everything's cyclical. Everything goes through waves and cycles, but this is a cycle we're going to have to endure for at least another year. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But damn it, allow defenders to get momentum off each other too, like offense. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking, Rams Nation. But anyway, we move on. We worry about other things, as some fun stuff to talk about real quick, as rookie tight end Terrance Ferguson at the NFL Players Association Rookie Premiere, where the NFL Players Association gets together, chooses some of the top draft picks from every NFL team, and they say, hey, we want to get a little photo shoot with you. You're representing the Rams. You're one of their top picks, or you're one of a high-profile player, and photo shoot them, give them their first rookie cards. That's when the first very official rookie cards and other memorabilia are created with them for team photos and a bunch of other stuff. But who was chosen for us? Yes, Terrance Ferguson, as this is the first time we're going to be able to see him in his Rams gear. As yes, this photo is slightly edited, as I am not a fan of the gradient numbers and the name tag patch, so I took them off. Made the yellow darker, made the blue made the blue royal blue darker.
You can't do that.
just for fun. It was a quick edit, so if you're tuning on YouTube, you can compare this one I did to the official one that the Rams and the NFL Players Association NFL released themselves. As hey, it would be nice to see the jersey like this, but I digress. Uniform topics, there's stuff I like to talk about, not just Rams related, but pretty cool. I mean, our first official look of Terrance Ferguson, Mark, in a Rams uniform. Was cool.
Yeah.
Number 18.
Yeah, he looks like the real deal. And I have a question for you regarding Terrance Ferguson. An X's and O's question that I've been chewing on, and maybe we've talked about it. I don't think we have, though. So, and I remember McVay making some comments, and I think some other, maybe it was you who made a comment about how they're going to use Terrance Ferguson. Maybe not necessarily a prototypical tight end in all situations. So this is my question, and it might be a silly question. If it is, just call me out on it. Is 12 personnel dictated by the fact that Terrance Ferguson is a tight end, or by where he lines up, how the Rams deploy him? And the reason I'm asking that is, I've heard a little bit about the Rams potentially using him more like a slot receiver. I don't know. Maybe it's just a nuance between how your move tight end is used versus a slot wide receiver. So does that make sense? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so 12 personnel, everyone out there. There's different names for it, but this is an old school name that has stuck and has been around for a long, long time, since the 70s, I believe, when all these different number codings for offensive players came into fruition. So the first number in the 12 means how many running backs are on the field. So 12, 1, meaning one running back. And the second number is how many tight ends are on the field. So the 2 in this, meaning that there will be 2 tight ends. And you can think of it to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 22. You can do any crazy number you want. But again, first number means how many running backs. Second number means how many tight ends on the field. So to your overall question about him being a flex tight end and all that, and hey, those would be great options to see him do. And I think with his skill set and what he did at Oregon and what he was best at was being a receiving tight end. Yes, he could block, needs work on it, just like all the tight ends in this class. But the point is like, hey, we can line up in 12 personnel, or we can have the 12 personnel grouping, but we can do some spread kind of orientation, looks, and plays out of this. So it's like, hey, okay, the stuff we do in 11 with 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end, we can probably get away with to some degree in 12. Why? Because Tyler Higbee can line up and run routes. Terrance Ferguson has, maybe his skill set works out better with that based on what we saw on film, and we'll see how it translates to the NFL. And I think that's a good mismatch, because let's just say near the goal line, Rams Nation, we go, all right, 12 personnel, old school style, right? Wide receivers really out wide, both tight ends, hand in the dirt next to the O-line. and one running back, and we're like, hey, that's a running formation. We're going to try to run it. So, yes, you can play action, do stuff out there, but let's just say we've really put out there on film that all we ever do in 12 is the old school way I just described. But let's just say for a game, we don't do that. And we line everybody out wide like wide receivers. So Ferguson and Higbee are in the slot or out wide one-on-one. But the defense is in more of a run defense, bigger guy looking formation themselves. Now it's like, uh-oh, we have some linebacker on Terrance? That's not good. Uh-oh, we have some linebacker on Higbee? That's not good for us. And I think that's the key thing is that you can get a lot of versatility with that duo at tight end, along with obviously Puka and Devontae being the top two wide receiver guys, and hopefully Kyren being more of a threat in the passing game with Blake and Hunter as well. So yeah, Terrance could be in with Higbee and 12 personnel, but it's like, all right, Terrance, oh, they want to be in a more heavy set defense formation to stop the run. We're going to line you up one-on-one with a linebacker and exploit them that way. Or same thing with Higbee. And I think that's the overall flow that I hope to see, and I think that is their vision, along with, I think, Snead's remarks of they want Terrance to be the tight end one when Higbee's done very soon. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, it's very similar to what they did with when they had Cooper Kupp playing in the slot then. But with Terrance Ferguson, you come out of the huddle, teams are thinking 12 personnel is what I think you're saying, and the Rams just flex and audible or do whatever they want to do and deploy him however they want. And by the way, I don't know if you caught, Greg Olson was ranting and raving about Terrance. Thinks very highly of him, thinks he's going to be a very special tight end.
I hope so. Dang it. And I hope to see him in a classic royal blue and darker yellow uniform one day, like pictured here. But I do hope it works out. But we got to see. He's got to earn it, right? Colby Parkinson's going to be playing with fire under his ass because, they paid him and he's officially the third tight end based on Snead and McVay's comments throughout this offseason. But hey, he's got to earn it. Everybody's got to earn their stake. And I hope we see this new number 18 do well, and shout out to Roman Gabriel. It's kind of crazy that number's not retired yet, but I know Roman Gabriel's son and all of them are fighting for all that in the Hall of Fame induction. So shout out to you guys doing the good work on that. But I'm sure Ferguson did not think that, like, hey, I'm going to take Roman Gabriel's number, as he did say ring number 18 was from his former tight end teammate at Oregon that died tragically in an accident, and he wears number 18 in honor of him, as that was a number that was available. Which, hey, it'll probably be for a year, and then Terrance will probably switch to number 3 when that becomes available, whenever in a couple of years. That's his number he wore in high school, Pop Warner, and college. Just like Puka, he'll probably switch to his original number one day. So 18 is temporary, for everyone who is a little pissy with him taking that number. It'll be all right, I promise. So Terrance Ferguson in a Rams uniform. Pretty cool. If you're on YouTube, check it out. And if you're not, hit our YouTube. You can see the visual we have up. And Rams Nation, I think it's important to talk about someone who you may not think has a lot of Rams ties, and his family with that ties, and how it was a very, very important in Rams history. But we want to send our condolences to the Irsay family as Colts owner Jeremy Irsay passes away, as he was born in 1959 and died in this 2025 season that we currently live in, as he was 65 years old. Apparently there was some health issues going on with him secretly that the family had, noted and talked about throughout the years. And whatever that battle was, Mr. Irsay, you fought well, and wherever you end up in the next plane of existence, I hope it's a fun time playing rock and roll, as I know that was his thing. And hey, good owner. And shout out to his pops, and we'll get to that shortly. But crazy, Mark.
Yeah, way too young. 65. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a shame for sure. So we bring this up, Rams Nation, to, yes, honor the dead, to honor the passing of Irsay, and to honor someone who was a big part of the NFL world and an owner, right? And I think it's also important now during this time to remember the Irsay family and how they played a huge part in Rams history, as this is something a lot of people do not know. And I know a lot of people who lived it, were alive in the 70s, who were maybe born shortly after remember, and people who suffered in the St. Louis era remember. But there's a lot of people who forgot and or just don't know. And I think it's important to talk about that, Mark. The Rams and Colts, important history. And what is that important history? Well, these two gentlemen here pictured, former owners of both the Colts and the Rams simultaneously at different times. As you can see pictured on the right there, you see Irsay Sr., Robert Irsay, the former owner of the Los Angeles Rams for a quick time, and then eventual owner of the Colts. And you see former Colts owner there on the left. You see Carroll Rosebloom, who then became the owner of the Los Angeles Rams. And how did that unfold, everyone? Well, let's pull up a tweet from a while back, but it's a quick little recap, and we'll break it down a little bit more here. Gil Brandit says, on this day in 1972, July 13th, and this tweet was from 2020. I know, it was a while back, but I thought it was a cool little recap. On this day in 1972, Robert Irsay bought the Rams and transferred ownership of the club to Carroll Rosenblum in exchange for the Colts. Players and coaches were unaffected, and their affiliations remained the same. The trade saved Rosenblum $4.4 million in capital gain taxes, which is, yes, a lot of money back then. And I get it. Millionaires and wealthy owners, you can say that's a lame excuse and all that, but hey, that's how it went down. So, to give you another quick recap on how that went down, Rosenblum, everyone, bought the Colts way back when for $13,000. Right, majority ownership back in 1952, if my memory serves me correctly, which is crazy, or 1953. So insanely cheap, and he kind of got forced into it, but he wanted to own a team, and eventually he loved it as, hey, they won multiple NFL championships. He hired Don Shula originally with the Colts, right? Grandfather of our Chris Shula now with the Rams calling defensive plays, and eventually Shula went to Miami not that long after. And then, was the owner of the Baltimore Colts, who eventually beat the Dallas Cowboys and won a Super Bowl back in 1970 or 1971 technically. So dude was a good owner. But with all the chaos at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore going on, and how the city wasn't helping or was not going to fund anything, and they were just having a hard time finding a new spot for the Colts to play, all that going on, you have to remember that the Reeves estate, who owned the Rams at the time, was selling the team. And so Robert Irsay bought the Rams for $19 million at that time, which he outbid Tampa Bay Buccaneers owner or future owner Hugh Culverhouse. And in that, approached Rosenblum, who owned the Colts at the time, and said, hey, do you want to trade teams? And they both agreed, which a major part of that was Rosenblum knew he had to move the Colts out of Baltimore. He knew it was going to happen, and he knew it was going to cost a ton of money at that time, and other taxes on top of all the taxes that he did end up avoiding. And Irsay and the Irsay family had no problem doing that. So in that year in 1972, these two gentlemen pictured on your screen agreed to swap teams. Irsay said, all right, I don't want the Rams. I'll take the Colts. And Rosenblum says, perfect. I'll take the Rams. I don't have to worry about moving, and I don't have to worry about paying big taxes. So Rosenblum became the owner of the Rams in 1972, and then Irsay became owner of the Baltimore Colts, and then said, hey, we're packing everything up and going to Indianapolis in that famous overnight shipment of goods and trucks loading up, right? Mark, to go to Indianapolis. Wow.
Yeah, there's some crazy history with the Rams going back to that era. And now I don't remember this. I was around, but I don't really remember this. But leading up to that, I mean, the Rams were, such a big thing in LA, the fearsome foursome, and then this happened, and then the whole George Allen debacle after that. And then Carroll Rosenblum drowns, and Georgia takes over.
Let's talk about it then. So,
yeah,
I mean, crazy Rams. You just picture this: if Rosenblum was fine with moving the team and he was like, screw it, we'll make it work, or maybe the city of Baltimore agreed with them, or maybe he had the extra dough and said, screw it, I'll pay all that to move the team and get it figured out, then the Irsays would have owned the Rams. Think about that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but just how drastically different all of NFL history would be. You could argue that the Irsays would have never bailed from Los Angeles. And I think that's correct. I don't think they ever would have bailed to St. Louis. Now, let's go back to the Rose Boom and the timeline we all lived, right? Rams were really good in the 70s. Shocker, right? Rosenblum's Colts were really good, and players were so sad to see him leave the Colts ownership and, sell the team, basically, or swap teams. Rams in the 70s won the NFC West 7 straight times, right? Made a bunch of playoff appearances, right? Lost to the Vikings a bunch during that time. That sucked. And then, yes, to Dallas. And then also, unfortunately, lost that one against the Steelers where that team probably should have won. But, the dynasty of the Steelers, I was unfortunate. And I think what's unfortunate about all that, unless I got my timeline mixed up with the Steelers Super Bowl, apologies if that's not correct. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here.
That was the end of the 79 season.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. But, he died tragically. I think he had drowned, if my memory serves me correctly, and people thought he got assassinated because he was like a gambling issue, and that his son was like, who was one of the team presidents for the Rams at the time. He was like, my dad would never go out swimming. So that was all mysterious how that happened. And then famously, everyone thought that his son would have inherited the team and would have kept him in LA, but to Mark's original point, and every Rams fan's dissatisfaction with this, that his second wife, Miss Georgia Frontier, inherited it, and then eventually things got wacky, and they moved to Anaheim, and then eventually to St. Louis, and the St. Louis era was a disaster, and yada yada yada. Okay, we all lived that timeline, we knew it. But the Irsay family, if they would have owned the Rams, I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that they would have never left Los Angeles. Isn't that crazy to think about? And just how different things would be, right? No Kroenke would have bought the team. There would be no SoFi Stadium currently. There would have been no Super Bowl championship in that stadium, right? There would be no Sean McVay, most likely. There would be no any of your favorite players in this LA Rams 2.0. There would be no greatest show on turf. There would be no any of those guys that are Hall of Famers and should be Hall of Famers. I mean, history would have been so drastically different. It's crazy to think about. But all because Mr. Rosenblum was like, I don't know if I want to move the team and pay all that. And Irsay was fine with that. It all unfolded. It's just so crazy to think about?
Yeah, and another angle to consider is, had they not left the Coliseum, and I know the Coliseum Commission and all that, that was a big mess. Maybe they moved to Anaheim regardless. But if they don't move to Anaheim, I don't think the Raiders come to LA. If they stay at the Coliseum, Raiders stay in Oakland probably. And that would have been, that really changed the history of football in Los Angeles. The Rams moving to Anaheim, opening the door for the Raiders. So there's that.
I mean, it's just
the Rams have so many crazy things that happened with their franchise during their days in LA. There was that gigantic trade with Washington. It was like 15, 16 players getting traded. It was crazy. And then all this. I got to do an episode, maybe just a series on the history of the Rams and highlighting all these crazy things that happened with them. But yeah, Irsay as the Rams owner all this time, everything would have been different. Who knows?
I mean, it's all of our lives would be different. I mean, let's just be honest. Everyone's lives would be different. It would be the crazy butterfly effect, or butterfly effect. That's a tongue twister right there. It would. You hear that theory and you see the movies and stuff, but it would be, right? I mean, everyone going to games, the fandom in Los Angeles, people who veer towards the Raiders or the Niners or the Chargers in California, or maybe they were Cowboy fans. You know what I'm saying? Like, all those people probably don't lean that way or don't become fans of those teams. And obviously the team in LA has to win and do well and all that. Yeah, of course. But gosh, what a drastic difference the world would be, in at least the NFL world, and all our fandoms would be, if Irsay was the owner, because I firmly believe he would have not bailed from Los Angeles like Georgia Frontier did, when her husband had passed, and years later she made that move. Crazy to think about.
Yep.
But we talk about that today again, Rams Nation, to just highlight the history of the Irsay family and to also highlight this man's father, Jim Irsay, with Robert Irsay, and say thanks to them for helping us become Rams fans in this crazy timeline that we lived. And I hope he is in a better place and playing his guitar and enjoying rock and roll, which I know Jim Irsay liked to do. So
Yeah, and we can
R.I.P.
thank
to his
him
father,
for
R.I.P. to him.
and we can thank him for parting ways with Marshall Falk as well, right?
Yep. Thank you for that. And I'm sure there's other things. Thanks for taking Eric Dickerson off our hands and
I'm trying to look at the glass half
doing all
full
that,
here, but-
right? And getting some trade, even though that trade was dumb. But you know what I mean. There's a lot of Colts history, right? Marshall,
Yeah.
Eric, the trade of the teams.
Right.
A lot of big trades in history. A lot of big trades in history.
Yeah.
And wish we would have got better capital back for Eric, but oh well. It's neither here nor there. But RIP to Jim Irsay, RIP to his father. And thank you for getting us on this crazy timeline we all enjoyed in Rams history. RIP to those guys. There's your history lesson, Rams Nation. If you did not know, really fun. Yeah, we got to do more Rams history episodes, Mark. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree for sure.
There's certainly a lot to talk about.
Yes, there is. And we know it's a lot to talk about, and our fandoms have been talking about a lot. Mark, the great Kyren Williams extension debate.
Oh, man.
Right? Is Kyren any good? Is he a touchdown merchant? He fumbles too much. Why are we going to pay him? Oh, he's actually not that great at pass blocking, or he's overrated. Yada, yada, yada. You get the point, Rams Nation, as Kyren Williams has been a major focal point this last couple days, and really since the offseason and since that playoff game where he fumbled against the Eagles, of like, hey, is he actually any good? Or is he worth the trouble giving the ball this much? I mean, it's been a great debate I've been seeing on Twitter X and other sites. It's been pretty crazy, pretty split, it feels like. And
well,
it
you
feels
want my
like,
2 cents?
man, oh man.
You want my 2 cents? What?
Yeah, let me hear it. It's just crazy. I'm just thinking about it in my head. I'm like, man, oh man, our fan base is split.
I think Ram fans are being silly. I mean, whether we should give them an extension, it depends on the money. It depends on, if they can come to a sensible agreement, because running backs, you don't want to necessarily pay them big money. I get it. But he is, he has his limitations as far as breakaway speed, and he maybe fumbled one too many times last year, maybe two, and that's a fixable thing. But I think, until Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter really prove something to us, I think we needed to stop it. And he's our number one running back entering the 2025 season. I expect him to retain that until he proves otherwise, either by putting the ball on the ground. I don't think his productivity is going to drop off. He's perfect for this offense. It'd be great to have, if he had that breakaway speed as well. But I'm a Kyren Williams fan, and I don't know what these Ram fans are talking about.
Look, I'm a Kyren guy as well. I mean, we hammered the table all last season during games how if he did not get enough carries, our offense was going to be piss poor and we were going to lose games. And that happened quite a lot when the offensive passing game was just flat out awful for a multitude of reasons, right? People were injured, linemen were gone and missing because of injury. Stafford was getting harassed. I thought play calling from McVay wasn't the best in the passing game. There was multiple reasons. But you know what was constant? Kyren Williams running the ball and getting tough yardage. He was a good running back for us. Now, people that would argue he is a touchdown merchant, we saw Blake Corum get carries, and he didn't punch him in all the time when he was close to the goal line. And you can say he didn't get as many carries as Kyren. But, okay, put that to the side. He scored a lot of touchdowns. I think it's pretty important to score touchdowns, right, everyone? Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the next important thing? Getting first downs and moving the chains. Kyren, majority of the season, was fantastic in short yardage situations where he would lower his shoulder, he would bulldoze, and he would definitely dart forward and get the much needed third and short, fourth and short a lot of times he would get. And that's very valuable too. Not every running back could do that or has that skill set or the strength and all that. I'm not saying he's, the Nigerian nightmare where he was just rolling dudes over and blowing through guys, the Kansas City Chiefs running back, if you remember him, everyone. So the most important things, moving the chains, scoring touchdowns, pass protection. Let's not forget about that.
That's right.
He's pretty good in. And then, yes, could he be a better catcher of the football? Sure. But there was times I thought when he got used in the passing game, he looked pretty good to me. Think of that touchdown, that Texas angle route where he scored and flipped over the 49ers defense early in the year. Think of the heads-up play that he scored on against the Vikings in the playoff game. And I'm sure there's other ones I'm just blanking on. But, Sean McVay doesn't use running backs in the passing game. It pisses me off. And I think he would be valuable in the screen game. I think he could do it. I think he could read blocks well. I think he has good vision. Yes, he is not a home run hitter, and that is why a lot of fans are fed up. Yes, he put the ball on the ground, and that is irritating. But to act like Kyren Williams isn't a good football player and that anyone could do what he does as replaceable just like the snap of fingers, I think is a little ridiculous in my opinion. But I will say, if he fumbles in another big game, or if he drops some passes in the passing game, or he gets hawked down again in big runs, or he cannot create any explosive runs when the lanes are there and the linemen open up the holes for him to gash and get big yardage. If those things all unfold, then I have no problem not, re-signing him. Or I have no problem with the Rams moving on from him, I guess I should say.
Well, yeah,
Now, all this is in tandem. Real quick, I'll finish on this, Mark. Real quick. How does Blake Corum look and how does our rookie Hunter look? Right? I mean, that's all in tandem. But we'll see. But I think Kyren's a hell of a good football player, and he produced when our offense sucked in the passing game last year. And I'll say this, Mark. If you want to pay him more than $10 million, I'm not on board with that. I'm just not. If you want to get him for 7 or 8, maybe 9 if he has a fantastic year, then I have no problem with that. But there's always a sweet spot. Like let's be real. Could he get paid $9 million like Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots? I think that's fair. Now, if you say, "Oh, let's get him," David Montgomery numbers like 9 and above, then you can have that argument of saying don't pay him that. But I think $9 million and less, I think that's pretty fair. But again, got to see how he looks and got to see how Blake Corum in year 2 looks and then Jarquez Hunter looks if he gets any snaps and opportunities. So I know it's a long soliloquy on that, Mark. Apologies. But
yeah, no, that's right. So the problem is, if he does check all the boxes this year, maybe a couple fumbles. We can live with that. And he continues to play the way we've seen him play. He punches the ball in the end zone. He moves the chains. He's not going to, I don't think he's going to prove that he has breakaway speed, maybe break 1 or 2 plays. If all that happens, we're not probably, knowing Sean McVay, we're not going to find out anything about Blake Corum or Jarquez Hunter, or very little about them. Yeah. So then you have the dilemma, do reward the guy, not knowing if maybe be able to draw some conclusions from practices and camp and all that. But if they're not going to give, and McVay has typically not been willing to give backup running backs a lot of playing time. So the only way we may find out about these guys is if Kyren blows chunks a little bit early in the year. So we'll see. Yeah, we've seen it in past years. I think you were the one that said it. Kyren Williams barely touched the ball his rookie year. Blake Corum barely touched the ball last year. So I don't know if we can expect to see much of Jarquez Hunter. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of Blake Corum and find out something about him, regardless of how well Kyren plays. Rotate his backs, keep them both a little fresh. So I just don't know if McVay has it in him to, use a 2-headed monster at the running back position.
Yeah, and offensive players that have been used with high draft picks haven't really panned out to be the greatest in the McVay era. Let's just be honest. Rounds 1, 2, or 3. Let's be real. So we'll see what Terrance Ferguson looks like. But, Tutu Atwell. We'll see. Van Jefferson didn't work out. Gerald Everett was solid, but really wasn't getting, featured burn like you maybe should have in the passing game. Darrell Henderson had some good moments, but was hurt a lot. Cam Akers had some really good moments as well, but was hurt a lot. And then he had a fumbling issue, and sayonara to him. And let's be honest, Darrell Henderson had some fumbles and limited opportunities as well. So I say all that to say, is Blake Corum actually going to be any good? I hope so. But as of right now, we had to say probably not based on history. Is Jarquez Hunter going to be any good? I don't know. We'll have to see it happen. Right. But if those guys are any good, then more likely than not, Kyren Williams will not be back with the Rams after the season. But if he goes on a great run this season, has over 1,000 yards again, which I think will happen if he stays healthy and plays well. And if he has, let's just say we go on a Super Bowl run, we play 4 games, and he scores a rushing touchdown each of those games, then of course, there's no doubt he's going to be back. He was a big reason why we won a championship, right? But if Blake Corum is doing things just as good as him, then you can forget about it. He will not be back no matter how good he is. Let's just be honest about it. Because, hey, pay you $7-9 million or Blake Corum on a 3rd-round rookie pay scale for another couple of years. Right? Let's just be honest. That's just how it goes. And maybe Jarquez Hunter goes off and he's this home run hitting guy like everyone's hoping, and he's scoring long touchdowns and forget it. So again, it's multi-layered, Rams Nation. Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter's production and skill sets, how do they do? And then obviously Kyren being who he is and getting all these issues of fumbling and other things squared away. So we'll see. It's a big year for him, but I see a lot of fandom acting like he's just replaceable with anyone, not just like another good player, anyone. I see some of that. That's pretty crazy in my opinion. Dude's a good football player. Not just anyone can play running back in his spot right now. I just want to say that again.
It's I think that's crazy talk as well, because you can see him, you watch him play, his ability to, that little jump step, whatever you call it, that he does over and over again to get that extra 3 or 4 yards. But I will say overall, I'm really happy with our running back room. I feel really good about it. I think we haven't even talked about Ronnie Rivers. We got 4 guys, and all high character guys, all strong clubhouse guys, fit this culture perfectly. So in that regard, Rams they may have one of the better running back rooms in the league right now.
I mean, guys, I found the stat I was trying to look for and make sure I got it right. The Rams, the last 3 seasons, and so Kyren has been a Ram, they rank number 1 in first down conversions, touchdown short conversions, 3rd and 4th down conversions short. I mean, I probably didn't say that all right because this was worded a little bit weird. But anything short yardage, the Rams are ranked number 1 since Kyren Williams has been the running back and has been on this team. Isn't that pretty crazy? Like we talked about earlier. Anything in short yardage, he's been money. And that's a valuable skill set and player to have on your team. I don't think that's a coincidence, that being the thing. And again, Rams are number 1 the last 3 years in converting on 3rd and short, 4th and short, in goal situation, scoring touchdowns, or any getting a new, yardage gang situation, if that makes sense. So dude is valuable, man. Dude is valuable.
And Ram fans that want to move on from Kyren Williams, also got to say is be careful what you wish for. You may find yourself missing Kyren Williams very soon.
Yeah, I mean, again, find that stat. I think this is by one of my buddy here, by the 33rd team. I'm sure they have that on Twitter X. You can find that out. So there you have it, Rams Nation. The great Kyren Williams debate, and hopefully,
I think we
see him
it.
Not fumbling and catching some touchdowns and running it in. So yeah, Jesus Louise, craziness. That's the offseason for your Rams Nation. Everyone's debating.
Ram fans are fickle sometimes.
I know, but hey, we shall see. If everything goes well, we win a Super Bowl. He runs well, and all is forgotten about today's topic and other topics I've seen people talk about. But man, Mark, what a great day of news that unfolded on us, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
Lots of little things add
RIP.
up to yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of little things add up to an hour episode.
yes, they do. And again, rest in peace to Jerem Irsay, son of Robert Irsay, who sold or swapped teams from Rams to Colts. And hey, who knows what it would have been like if he owned the team? I'm still thinking about that. It would have been crazy,
Yeah.
crazy timeline we lived on. But man, on Rams Nation, if you're on YouTube, like this video, share this channel, share this video, subscribe to our channel if you're not already. That helps out the algorithm with other potential Rams and football fans to see our content on YouTube. And if you're only on the podcast side of things, audio only side of things, share this podcast with all your fellow Rams fans. We very much appreciate it. But Mark, anything before we get out of here?
No, I'm good, and we'll keep on pumping out some content. A lot of little things to talk about. Continue my cruise through Rams opponents this year, kind of checking in on all the teams, and I got some ideas, some other good content coming your way real soon, hopefully.
Yep. And as the news drops, we will be here to cover it, Rams Nation. And man, oh man, I can't wait for football to start. We're so close, but still a little far away, it feels like, and that sucks. But never forget, baby, go Rams.